Good morning. I'm Patrick Windhorst, State Representative of the 118th District. That is all or parts of the southernmost 11 counties of our state. I'm from Metropolis in Massac County. Before my election to State Representative, I previously served as Massac County State's Attorney for 14 years. I'm joined today by my colleagues Representative Tony McCombie and Representative Jackie Haas to review the state of criminal justice reform and discuss a very concerning rise in serious crime in Illinois since the so-called Safety Act was passed and signed into law last year. House Bill 3653, now Public Act 101-652, cleared the House on January 13, 2021 by the slimmest possible majority, with just minutes left to go in the 101st General Assembly. And it was signed into law by Governor Pritzker on February 22, 2021. In the lead-up to the session that saw its passage, House Republicans warned that the massive changes contained in the act would lead to reduced public safety and the decline of the ability of police officers to do their jobs. We warned that our state was already seeing an increase in the violent crime rate after 2 decades of decline from the mid-1990s to the mid-2010s, and that these changes would lead to further increases in crime. We warned that the impact of prior recent reform efforts had not been adequately studied to determine their impact on the rise in crime in our state. We warned that the future end of cash bail will increase repeat offenders and cause major police and public safety concerns, as we have seen from other prior bail reform efforts. We warned the act contained harmful financial impacts and unfunded mandates for local communities and police forces. We warned against reducing legal protection for police officers and allowing unlimited anonymous complaints against police officers. We also warned these changes would significantly reduce police morale and harm recruiting and retention efforts. Now, even though some of these provisions have not yet taken effect, we can see the impact of those provisions that have. By reviewing publicly available statistics and through our conversations with law enforcement officers and groups throughout the last year, we have confirmed many of these fears to be true. Crime rates, particularly violent crime rates, are up after decades of decline. What will happen when the remaining provisions become effective, particularly the elimination of the cash bail system? Our concern is that it will lead to a further increase in crime and reduce public safety. Serving as a law enforcement officer is a dangerous, often thankless job. Yet every day, thousands of heroes put on the badge and head out into uncertainty in their effort to keep Illinois communities and our neighborhoods safe. We as House Republicans want to thank our law enforcement and police officials and police officers for the important job they do. We support you. You are appreciated by me, my colleagues here today, by the House Republican caucus, and millions of Illinoisans who rely on you. As the 2022 spring session gets underway, we are here today to urge our Democratic colleagues in the House and Senate and Governor Pritzker to change the direction they are taking this state when it comes to law enforcement and the criminal justice system. As policies passed by the General Assembly and signed by the governor have taken effect, we have seen the job of law enforcement officers become more dangerous and harder to do. Criminals are acting more emboldened than ever before, and repeat offenders are being let out of jail with little to no cash bail. We need to reflect on the rise in violent crimes and ask, why are these things happening? Why are we seeing flash mobs of violent criminals smashing the windows of businesses, breaking in and stealing thousands, hundreds of thousands, and combined millions of dollars of goods? Why are we seeing an increase in murder rates? Why are we seeing an increase in shootings and carjackings? We must change direction. We must work together to repeal the problematic parts of the last year's criminal justice bill and work to restore law and order in our communities. Our citizens deserve to live in safe communities and neighborhoods where they can live, work, play, and raise their families without the fear of being the victim of violent crime. I will now turn over to Representative Tony McCombie.
Thank you. I'm Tony McCombie, State Representative from Northwest Illinois. Have parts of Carroll, Whiteside, Rock Island, and Henry counties. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are here to recognize the one-year impact of the majority passing this policy to punish police and actually reward criminals. Rep. Windhorst gave you a great background on the legislative action from 1 year ago, this week, that actually set a crime wave into motion. But I'd like to tell you a little bit more of the actual impact over the past year, not only in districts like mine in Northwest Illinois, but across all corners of our state. In 2021, we saw 17% of Illinois sheriffs retire early. In 2022, we will see a record number of elected sheriffs retiring or moving on to other careers or other states. More than half of the state sheriffs have already announced they will not run again, many of those citing the attack on law enforcement coming from the state's radical politicians. Law enforcement recruitment is in a crisis, not just in our sheriffs, this also is in our cities, our small villages and communities. They cannot fill these positions due to the intentional partisan attacks on their profession. Chicago's murder rate is the deadliest we have seen in 25 years. 836 homicides in the city of Chicago in 2021. 98 of those victims were under the age of 18. 12 of those were under 10. 4,300 gunshot victims in the city of Chicago, bringing Chicago to the highest number of any other city in our nation. At the same time, nationwide, 346 law enforcement officers were shot in 2021, killing 63 of them. 9 of those murders were here in Illinois. That means 14% of the nation's killing of law enforcement happened in one state, in our state. That's a 34% increase over the prior year. We need our law enforcement partners more than ever. Democrats in Illinois have blatantly blocked penalty enhancements for criminals for years. Today, we're seeing them actually parade out victims to sell a message that they will never legislate. Illinois Democrats will not allow penalty enhancements or punish criminals. Illinois Democrats will only punish police and threaten our public safety. I'd like to introduce Representative Jackie Haas.
Thank you. I'm Representative Jackie Haas from the 79th District. I represent most of Kankakee County, part of Will, and part of Grundy. The issues we're discussing today have real consequences in the lives of Illinoisans. Unfortunately, we're seeing these consequences impact the lives of Illinoisans all too frequently. Democrats have created a climate that has emboldened criminals to believe they will not be punished for these heinous acts. Last week in my district, we endured the unspeakable tragedy of losing the life of a police officer. Sergeant Marlene Ritmanick was shot and killed while pleading for her life. Her partner, Officer Tyler Bailey, was critically wounded after being shot in the head. These two officers were responding to what would generally be considered a routine nuisance call. A call about a barking dog left unattended in a car in a parking lot of a hotel. When they went to the room of the suspected owners, they were ambushed and attacked. Sergeant Ritmanick died from her injuries. Officer Bailey remains in critical condition, fighting for his life today. My thoughts are with the family, friends, and coworkers of these officers. My colleagues and I have been raising concerns about the massive uptick in violence in the city of Chicago, and we warned the governor over and over again that the violence that they see in Cook County would bleed into the rest of the state if continued to go unaddressed. And sadly, we see our warnings have come to fruition here. The shooter of Sergeant Ritmanick and Officer Bailey is a habitual offender. He had been arrested 21 times and charged 43 times with various crimes throughout Kankakee County. He was wanted on a warrant in June of this year for residential burglary, theft and deception, and knowingly damaging property. He was also wanted on warrants for failure to appear in court and had previously fled from police officers when they tried to detain him on these warrants. Now, he's been arrested and charged for this horrible and heinous crime of murder of a police officer. This is an example of what happens when we allow criminals leniency. This is an example of what will continue to happen as a result of the Safety Act. We cannot continue to allow those who repeatedly violate the law to run the street with no consequence. We cannot continue to tie the hands of our law enforcement officials and our court system. My heart is heavy with the reality of this situation, and I urge Governor Pritzker and his Democratic colleagues to see crime in the state of Illinois for what it is. There are very real consequences when we embolden criminals and fail to support our Illinois law enforcement officers. To all of our police officers and public safety personnel, thank you for your services, and you have our full support.
Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel. And while you're at it, please leave us a comment. Thank you for watching.